until the next week.
Daniel said he just woke up. He's coming.
Okay, cool. So we are live. Welcome back to the other state of the network. It's July 18th at 10 in the morning. We got a new time. Ripping. Welcome, guys. Let's see a couple things. Here comes Daniel. Couple interesting things to go through. First off, what's up, dog? Dave at Helium Analytics, who usually does our first kind of 5 minutes of what's happening with the network, got called away for some other real life work stuff. So, Neil, do you want to walk us through what's been happening the last week?
Yeah, so the light hotspot swap, obviously, over the weekend, companies like Rack have just done it. So, over the weekend, like if you hadn't had the Mux upgrade, then data transfer wasn't going to work. So, the state of the network right now is a bit, uh, missing some data, but that should all start clearing up. But yeah, just to give Dave a shout out, the stuff he's been doing, he's finally got his ETL sorted. He started tweeting again, so we're getting daily reports of usage, and his website's coming back to live now. It's been a bit of a fuss for a couple of months, so we should start seeing some more from him soon and some
Yeah.
of his reports.
Hey, talk me through.
But yeah,
Good.
but just basically, it's the same as what we've been expecting. Targeting is still less than every hotspot on the network. They're still working on it. It's stable but bad. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say bad, but maybe not as ideal as what everyone would want it to be.
Yeah. Yep. Was there something that happened with the ETL that made it suddenly easier to get back up, or was it, Daniel, were you just kind of traveling a bunch, or was there something else? Like what? How come it was down for so long and now it's like, oh, cool, we got it again?
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, guys. I was taking a nap. Woke up 5 minutes ago.
Sorry.
Forgot about this thing after a long call. So yeah, we were traveling for a long time, but that was not the cause. That was I ran the ETL for DY or for the Helium Foundation, and we also have a website that I can write to you guys later. Which anyone who wants to run their own ETL, they can just simply download the blockchain data and import on their servers, which is much faster than actually syncing the blockchain from the beginning, which can take, I think, it'd be impossible right now. And there was like a small issue with my backup code that it wasn't deleting the previous one. So it was always updating the big blockchain, it was like a terabyte. With it, like wasn't updating that file, but then I was updating the rockdb, which is like the blockchain ETL. They're like consistent of two files. So the rockdb was up to date, and the Postgres was behind, and that can never happen. Like one is like the Postgres needs to be always ahead of that, and that wasn't the case. So everybody who was trying to import from that data wasn't working because the information was old. Regardless, long story short, there was an issue with the files, and then I talked with everybody like brainstorming, figuring out how to do it. There was some issues with like some migrations. I was in Barcelona at the time as well. Then and the problem is also the blockchain is like massive, right?
Right.
Everything takes forever to do. But it's good now. Everything's good. The snapshot server is serving like real data. Anyone who wants to run their ETLs can have like up to date. Now I take snapshots once a week. I would like to start doing maybe like twice a week.
Yeah.
But it's because the zipped blockchain is like 1.2 terabytes. It's a lot of data and takes like 24 hours to import and besides downloading everything. But it's good. Everything's good. Took more than we wanted. But yeah, running the
Okay.
ETL is always a fun job.
Yeah, yeah. Now, well, and
I think
speaking of, go ahead, Neil.
Dave had a few more issues because I think his disk filled up and he needed to wipe it, and then obviously couldn't restore. It couldn't restore a backup, so it just took longer than normally would for an ETL to come back up. So it was just one of those bad timing things that led to weeks of downtime and him not being able to do anything really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
with
mean, the
all
thing
that,
is like you do one thing wrong. Yeah, sorry, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, with all that said, like the network's starting to actually work as far as the data stuff, or not starting. It's been working pretty much the whole time. It's just getting smoother. Um, and Neil, you've got a new site that is actually working on the network.
Yeah. So TrackPack has now got a new website, and we're ready to, really talk about use cases for people. So really excited for that. And we are talking about use cases with a lot of companies. They're so excited to use the network, and that they're realizing just how much better it is than GSM. Both on battery usage, cost, and just ease of use. Solutions like mine and Paul's WEO terminal stuff, and all of these tools, and the hotspots, all these tools make it way more easier to use the Helium network, and we just need more of it. But there's definitely a huge audience out there waiting to try this thing. They just need a bit of education about it, and a bit of hand holding to get them through that process.
Yeah, you were
And that's what
teasing
we're
us,
finding.
with all the people who are signing on, but you can't say any of their names. So
I can't
something's
say any
happening.
names. Yeah, but we're signing quite a few customers up already, and it's just because we published a website, we've built a system, and we're really, really hammering home that helium is the solution to a lot of problems that exist.
Yeah. Paul, we were talking just before we went live here, and you brought up this point that for the end user, they shouldn't have to worry about helium at all. Can you develop that thought a little bit more? Because that was really interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, what we were discussing is, I mean, there is two kind of community inside Helium. Basically, there is a tech community with makers, so we really like to make our device, and I think all four here really like to make device, and we will explain to all others how to create their own device and so on. So it's growth in terms of engineering and so on. But the majority of the community in Helium is their user. I mean, they like Helium because it's a hotspot. They just have to plug in a network and it works basically sometime. So in terms of device use, they want to get the same experience. I mean, if they want a sensor for the air quality, they want a tracker for their cars, they want a weather station, they want this kind of stuff, but they don't want to configure it, they don't want to code, they don't want to compile, they don't want to push a firmware or thing like this because it's too complex for them. I mean, they are not IT developers and so on. And they are really happy to learn, but the learning curve is really long because I mean, you and me, we have 10 years or more, or for 30 years of experience in development. So what we have to learn for Helium is just one more step.
Yep.
But for them, it's the whole mountains they have to consider. And so it's really important to have ready to go services. It's something just you buy and you download the app and it works. And what we said just before Niels arrived, what I said is it's typically the applications that Niels is doing, which is interesting. It's you download the app, you can select the tracker you want to have. You have your market inside. You order your device. Potentially, you get it at home, and it works in the application. And it's use Helium, but you don't care about this. Okay, it's just like, I mean, you can have a favorite telecom operator, and you want your smartphone to be on I don't know, Orange or AT&T. I don't know, but in fact, when you go on Facebook, you don't care if it's passed through AT&T or Orange or a user provider. It has to be the same. The experience has to be the same.
Yeah. How long do you guys think that will take until we get there where the let's say the ecosystem is pretty built out and people have no idea whether they're using helium or not, even if they are?
That's I like this question. So I take the microphone because I mean, you see the logo behind me. No, the other direction. It's Sigfox, and in fact, myself, I'm developing services. I mean, exactly what Niels is doing. I did it 7 years ago on Sigfox, and in fact, this ecosystem as trying to be created with Sigfox, with the Sync network, with Helium, and the project and the purpose are exactly the same every time. So it's hard to say because I don't think that we are restarting from the same point at each step, because in fact the market is getting really more maturity.
Yeah.
And Helium is creating a big change, because what the problem I've been facing during the 7 last year was to create a business model which is acceptable by the consumer. What I mean is, when you are doing with LoRaWAN with a telecom operator or Sigfox, you have a regular fee, I mean a yearly fee, which is the important cost. And after 2 or 3 years, it's more important than the hardware cost. And so you need to have, for 10 years, you need to have a recurrent subscription. And this is really a blocking point on the market, particularly on B2C, but also on B2B. And Helium is breaking this with a 𝗨𝗏𝗀 which is really low. And so it changes many things. And what I mean is, on the side, there is a maturity of the customers that try to understand what they can do with such devices, and this new approach for the subscription cost, which cannot be subscription anymore, and that can facilitate things. So the ecosystem is quite there because many companies has made things during the last 7-10 years. The market is better, the offer is better, so I think it's going to really accelerate.
We're close.
And in my point of view,
Sure,
it's not a
100%.
question of 6 months. Yeah, it's not a question of 6 months because we also need to have people trusting Helium. I've been really happy. Just before we connect, Neil said, I have some big actors that are really interested in Helium. It's good. I mean, in UK, in France, if you go to big actor, I know certain that are curious about it. But if you go to a big actor and say, okay, it's a crypto stuff. Okay, I'm not interested anymore. Okay, you know what I mean?
Right.
100%.
We have to pass this step, and so maybe in my point of view, it's 3-5 years, something like this, to have something which is really mature, which can be longer, but in fact, regarding to all what happened in the past, it start to be really close to us.
Love it.
I think it's a very
Sure.
interesting comment regarding this thing that people don't want to be involved to crypto, but they don't have to, right? If you're building a project, you can forget that Helium is crypto. You pay your data credits in dollars, and then you keep on building. Also, the way that the networks is deployed right now, like there's coverage basically everywhere. I think just a matter of companies taking those like 2-year timeline that takes to build a product, like a hardware product. I mean, Neil did an amazing job, like super quick. You have something up and running with an amazing website. Congratulations, by the way.
But I've had no life building that. You know, it's literally been me coding it non-stop because I really want some educational piece for the Helium network.
Yeah.
I want something that you can give someone
amazing.
a tracker, scan a QR, and just use the network. The education is the most important piece, and I think we'll spend the next year doing that. Next year or two doing that. You know, it's about the education side of it. I mean, the problem for me and installations and talking to people about the Helium network is that they can't deploy gateways and ensure that they're up. You know, we've had this sync problem for such a long time that it's detrimental to them to install it in a network where the traditional off Helium stuff, you know, private LoRaWAN stuff, they offer 100% SLA on it. You know, we just can't do that on Helium. And we definitely couldn't do it with sync in place. So I think a lot of opinions will start to change now because they can put these hotspots in and make sure that they're up regularly. Because the sync just meant that, you know, one day it could be down or out of the blue, you know.
Yep.
So they were really put off with that. If they could get over the crypto thing, they were put off that they can't put gateways up and keep them up. So,
Yeah,
you know, that's moved on.
Yeah,
Yes. I think that's something that we could talk about, right? This thing.
The sync problem is mostly behind us, but even if it has been existing, I mean, the sync problem is not global. I mean, it's rare that you have 80% of the miners that are down. It's more something like 10, 30, 40%. And okay, in some areas, there is only one hotspot and you can lose the coverage. But when you are in a city, I know, in my city, for example, there is more than 200 hotspots. The national operator that has a LoRaWAN network on that city has 10 hotspots, 10 gateways. Okay, so we have 20 times more, which means that even if 50% of the hotspots are not synced and done, you still have 10 times more hotspots than a classical operator. So in fact, there is a reliability due to the density of hotspots, which is something really interesting that solves also the scalability issue we have with LoRaWAN. So I'm not really afraid of this. And when I see, I mean, I had a long experience with the sync networks, and now it's have a really good hardware, it's really software, it's really stable, and so on. But 2 years ago, and for the first 3 years, it was done, I mean, on a really regular basis. So Helium, even if we had a hard year, basically the current situation only a year after is really quite stable, which is really interesting.
Yeah. No, it's a fascinating thing. Let's take a quick pause. I'm seeing in the comments a bunch of questions that I think we covered, but we might as well hit again with this whole update piece. As people are saying their Bobcats are behind, or their Nebras are on, or their Sense Caps, like whatever it is. Is over the weekend, Neil, we had this update pushed, and it looks like we're just getting a step closer to whatever the full implementation of light hotspots.
Plug and play hotspots. That's what I like to think. This is what it was sold as. It's plug and play, and now you truly are. As long as it's got internet connection and power, it's just plug and play.
Yeah.
But over the weekend, Thursday, they released the update which turned on 𝗪𝗁. 𝗪𝗁 is a temporary piece of software that delivers data from the packet forwarder and a hotspot to the 𝗚𝗏 miner and to the gateway RS miner. So there's two running at the minute. We're in a transition period.
Okay.
The 𝗚𝗏 miner is handling POC and gateway RS is handling data. Neither of those need sync, but they're both running. And what they did is they enabled 𝗪𝗁, so data transfer is going through gateway RS rather than the syncing part of the 𝗚𝗏 miner. So that meant that they could turn sync off and turn follow off. And yeah, it's just again, like they started work on Monday to fix some bugs. By the time they were done, it was a Thursday. A few manufacturers rolled it out on Fridays, but some haven't quite yet.
Yep.
But they also found that there's a problem that if they haven't got 𝗪𝗁 turned on, data won't be delivered. So everyone's noticed all these issues over the weekend. And obviously, because it's a weekend, it hasn't been fixed till today or started to be fixed today in a big way. So it's a bit annoying that it happens over weekends, but that's just how teams work. You start fresh on Monday, build something out, you get to Thursday and say, well, do we wait for Monday or do we just release now? And I know which one of those I preferred. Yeah.
What do they say?
Don't release on Friday. Would be good.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, I always try to follow there's this website 𝗚𝗏𝗶𝘀𝗁.io, where is the repository of the miners packages. Then as soon as I remember I updated my DIY like 4 hours after they released, and then it was nice to see stop on the data increase on the server. Yeah, just looking forward for all the miners to be up, and also removing the sync status from hotspots. That would be like the holy grail. I mean, Neil knows very well about the sync status, the pinging, all that stuff, right? That just causes more trouble to the network than help, to be honest. So I'm really happy for that to be done and be resolved.
Yeah.
There's other benefits for them turning off the sync as well. It's like the peerbook, which was a reference to every hotspot or node on the network. That shrunk massively now because there's no hotspots on it. So validators and updates on the peerbooks are much, much quicker because it's a much smaller network. So it's great to see, but yeah, it's still settling in as such. I think the big one that I like to see over the weekend is people's hotspots have gone from like 1.5 gig of data a day to 20 meg, 20, 30 meg. That's unbelievable. That really is like the future and how we get this thing into, rural areas. How would you ever have put it before on a 4G cellular and afforded that? It's just not profitable, but now you can put a gig plan on or a 2 gig plan
or less,
and be absolutely fine. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Neil, you've been using, what was it, 𝗚𝗏𝗶𝘴 wireless we were using, right?
Yeah, I stopped that a while ago though because it got so expensive. I was paying per megabyte and it was just not profitable to run. I mean, right at the start it was because we were making thousands of hotspot a day, a month. Yep. So it was you could write it off, but it got to the point where it's just too expensive. And the sync issues and the relay issues meant that I dropped cellular pretty quick. But now I would consider it,
Yeah, but for the DIYs, I mean, I've been running the 𝗚𝗏𝗶𝘴 wireless and the DIY since day one. I don't think my bill has ever gone over, I don't know, like $30 a month, and I think I was running nine DIYs at one point. So, yeah, we're gonna come into this pretty cool place. Paul, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I mean, for the DIY, what I've done on my side, I mean, the router, the miner part is on a dedicated server, so the traffic between the gateway and the miner is really limited. So I've been able to do solar powered hotspot with this, and the traffic is from a data center, which is quite more efficient. What was important point in my point of view is not really how our full miner has been changed. I mean, it's really important, but it means in fact that we are ready for the light hotspot, and the light hotspot is really more interesting because the cost of a light hotspot, I mean, it's a standard hardware, standard gateway, and we know that it can be under $100. If you add the network insertion, it will be 100 and less than 150 basically. And this is really interesting because it recreates a ROI investing in Helium and deploying new hotspots. Okay, that's quite interesting. And the other point related to that, also the hardware is eating less. It's more industrial, and it can run for a longer period also, which is important for the stability of the network in a long-term perspective. Because today we are about near close to 1 million hotspots, about 70% active, so it's about 700,000. But if we do not continue to grow this number, it will be 500,000, 400,000, 200,000, and declined. So it's really important that we have the ability to change the hardware and to keep a ROI on this. So that's, in my point of view, a really, really important point.
Yeah.
The flywheel's finally kicking in, though, isn't it? Like, we've heard of this flywheel thing with Helium that was going to bring the miner prices down, but like we're finally seeing it. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
I know of a hotspot manufacturer that's going to be releasing a light hotspot for $120. Just to go to show, like, that's half of the price of what they are now, and they've come down in price already. So it's so exciting to see that we can, get double the hotspots for onto the network and carry on doing it and make it profitable and earn our ROI back.
And it could be even cheaper, right? Because you could build a DIY hotspot with the 𝗨0, and then I guess you have to run the miner on a full Pi, but the packet forwarder, which is all you need, is can be on a 𝗨0 with a 2287, and that's like what, maybe $80 total. And so the manufacturer upcharges to 120. But yeah, it looks like it's gonna be pretty cheap.
Yeah, so cheap, unbelievable. It blew my mind when they told me how much they were going to charge for their light miner, and I was just blown away that it could be so cheap. I mean, Pis are expensive, but if they're using these small single board computers with hardly any RAM on them, they're so cheap.
That's right.
I mean, the 𝗨0 is like $5, right? Yeah. It's supposed to be around $5.
Don't need a 𝗨0. I mean, you can just use a standard microcontroller, and I mean, it's what's used Car-Link or you can have really something where it's really less expensive than this. So what cost at the end? It's mostly the LoRaWAN concentrator, because you need the same kind of hardware in any kind of solutions. But the MCU part is really light.
So Paul,
I mean,
go ahead, Daniel.
Sorry. It's like the most expensive part, I think, is going to be the concentrator. If there's a way to lowering that cost down, then you could have like $50 to $50, miners. But let's see. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying, Paul, you've been doing this a while. How kind of small power wise can we get a packet forwarder? Is it something that can run off a really a 5 or 10 watt solar panel? Does it get down to that kind of size, or will it always require a larger solar panel, larger battery, and all the rest of that? Obviously, depending where in the world you are and how much sun.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends the region where you are. But the problem of solar is not the solar quantity you need to power your system when you are at sunset on summer. A standard gateway is about 2 watts. If you go to 4G connectivity, it's about 4 watts. So you are about 2 and 4 watts, which is really small, basically. But the problem is that you need to have this at the morning, you need to have this at the evening, and just say that the solar power at the morning and the evening is about 10% of the sunset. So you jump for 4 watt to 40 watts. And then the problem you have is the night. So you have to cover all the night. So it means that you need to get during the day what you're going to consume during the night. So you jump for 40 watt to 80 watts. And then you want to be able to recharge your battery in only 1 day of sun time in winter, when the next one is snowing or cloudy. And so you multiply again by 2 and so on. So basically, my experience have good result with a 100 watt panel. Okay, it's basically what I use. With this, I have a SLA about 90 to 95% of uptime per year on the year.
Okay.
Okay, and which means that during the winter, I have up to 2 days offline, basically. I mean, in different time, I have this. So
Yeah.
the total is about, I think, 8 days offline during winter.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, just that was all stuff that I remember having to kind of go through early on with the DIYs. But I'm thinking if you don't need a Pi Zero and you can get something even smaller, I thought maybe you could get the power requirement down to 1 watt or half a watt. But it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like 2 watts, which is what I think I was measuring is about the base. I mean, it's still pretty exciting, and I'm seeing in the chats for all these rural areas, like, yeah, you are going to be able to afford to put a hotspot in without having some giant data plan on it, and then you're going to be able to cover a lot more area. Which is an exciting part of covering the world with helium.
I mean, that's what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted an off-grid kit. I've always wanted one box that I could just rock up to a business and pop it on their roof, not have to ask for internet, not have to ask for power.
Yeah.
And I think with these like gateways and the size of the small boards that you can have, we'll finally be able to do that. Just a kit that you can rock up to a business and just pop it on their roof, and it's serving the local area, or pop to the farmer down the road and say, we can just put this one box in the middle of a field and it will self-sustain itself.
Yeah.
It provide coverage and you can use it as you want. It's finally becoming a reality.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I like what Robert Putt, sorry if I'm butchering your name, mentioned, like running on an ESP32 for the data packet, the data forwarder with the REC 833. That would be really cool. Of course, you need to port to see or find a way to compile that Rust code, but that would be something really interesting. Maybe you should message me or message the DOI, the Helium Foundation about that. It could be a very interesting project to run. And we'll make.
My business partner, by the way.
In my point of view,
okay, cool.
It's fun to do that, but it's not the most efficient way to do that. Because in fact, the approach I use is I host my gateway RS into a server, and you can have about 32,000 gateway RS on the same server, because the memory footprint is really slow. The CPU usage is really slow. You just need to have an UDP port, okay? And each of your gateway will use a different UDP port. So this is really scalable. I made a project which is on my GitHub, which is a gateway RS Docker. So you can easily deploy a new gateway RS on your server and manage the upgrade and so on. And that way, what is interesting, all the Helium stuff, which is alpha version, and you don't know exactly what's going to be happen, is is on a server. You can always SSH on it and so on. And your gateway connecting to Helium and discussing with the gateway RS is a standard LoRaWAN gateway. So you can get any hardware, the cheaper one if you want. And the communication you will have will be only the same tech communication. And basically, I have a cost of two device like this on 4G. I have a cost about under $5 a month of network communication. Which is about 1/3 of the communication cost if I had the gateway RS on the gateway. So you see, it simplifies the things. It helps you to manage centrally your gateway RS stuff, and it basically really reduces your communication cost. So in my point of view, deploying gateway RS inside the gateway, it's good when you want an out-of-the-box solution. Like we said previously, if you are a user, you want to extend the network, you want just something plug and play, okay, you can go to the SID M2 Lite gateway. Basically, everything is already, not that only gateway, everything is already configured. You just set up with the application and you go. But if you want to deploy a fleet and you have to manage different, it's really more easy to deploy standard LoRaWAN gateway and use this approach of Docker centralized gateway RS.
Love it. I mean, that goes back to the comment you made at the beginning, is that the average user shouldn't need to deal with any of this stuff, but for the kind of geeky engineers, this is some pretty fascinating things. I see Daniel like, oh my God, thinking in new ways, and certainly Robert Putt in the chat kind of chiming in.
We're all sat there thinking, do we need to run a service to put gateway ARS on now? Who's doing that first?
Yeah, somebody. I mean, a lot of this stuff
I
came
did.
to light over the weekend with the Gristle crew. Is that we built this air quality sensor project that Joey had put up on GitHub, and even with Joey on the call with us, he kind of did us a favor and called in from Helsinki. It was still difficult. I think the call was 4 hours, and most of us got it done in 4 hours, but it was not an easy thing. And that you're combining all these different skills. You have to be able to solder really small parts, and you have to be able to know where to put stuff as far as the software goes, where to find stuff, how to, like, all these things that for the other three guys in the call are like, well, of course everyone knows that, but it's like every engineer knows that. All the regular users, certainly like me, it was really nice to have Joey there to say, well, go to my GitHub and hit this one button and then go to this thing and install this next thing on your computer. Like, it's cool. Not only are we making a transition from full hotspots to light hotspots, we're making a transition from needing to be a engineering geek to kind of being able to be a user. And that is what eventually will really drive this whole flywheel thing and the growth of the network. So exciting stuff there. Let's shift a little bit and talk about what we were talking about at the State of the Network Discord chat, our little private chat, is what happens, because there's no one from Helium on here, we can totally talk price. What happens when HNT goes to, what was it? I think we had a prediction, or someone said like, HNT is going to hit 1,000. And then Paul, you had said like, that's going to cause a problem for something, but I didn't understand the implication of that.
Yeah, it's in fact, the HNT basically does not exist. It's bonds, okay, and we see that with the HNT redemption, where we would like to change the unit basically. So in fact, it's the number of bonds, and it's an integer. Okay, so when you are, the minimum things you can pay with HNT is 1 bonds. Okay, and the problem is that
hang on a second,
one
Paul.
DC,
You're like, your English is fucking fantastic and 1,000 times better than my French. But just for folks who are speaking English, is you're saying bones, and I think you said integer, and we'll say that integer. So keep going. I just want to make sure people weren't like, what is he saying there? Yeah.
yeah. So in fact, it's just a subunit. Every transaction, in fact, when you're paid for a POC or a witness or anything, in fact, you're paid in bonds.
Yep.
And then there is a conversion to HNT, which is just a multiplier, in fact. So it's just the number of digits. Because, in fact, in the blockchain, you do not register the HNT transaction with a floating value. It's always an integer.
Right.
And so 1 bonds, as a definition, is the minimum value you can transfer over the blockchain, or you can reward or things like this. And the problem is the following one, is 1 DCs cost $0.0001. And the consequence is that if the HNT price goes over $1,000, it will be, 1 DC will be lower than 1 bonds. So it means that when a device will receive a data packet and it's 1 DC, you won't be able to give an HNT value for this. It will be 0.
Okay.
So if you get 2 or 3 DCs, it's okay. But if you get 1, it's not okay. And so I don't know what is the side effect of this, but
Yeah.
there's going to be a problem, because it's you cannot divide, in fact, the DC and the bonds price.
Okay.
And that's the issue at this level.
All right. So, I mean, it's I think, Neil, was that you that said it's a high quality problem? Like, we'll take that. We'll figure it out when we get to it.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, to get to $2,000 for a HNT, we would have to be 3rd or 4th on market cap. It's nearly impossible in a pipe dream. So we're talking a problem for 5-10 years, maybe.
Yeah.
To be as big as Bitcoin or Ethereum, or to overthrow, Polygon, stuff like that, we would be an insanely large network. We'd all own a Lambo, easy.
Sorry, I've heard Neil promise I'm getting this Lambo in 5 years. Done. Mark the date.
It's in the can. It's in.
Yeah.
And basically, all what I explained was valid before the IP51. And after the 𝗵𝗵𝗏, I can't exactly say what's going to happen for all of this, because the DCs will be managed on the chain of mobile and IoT. So not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there would be some hit to deal with this issue if
Sure.
that was the case, right? If you're gonna get there. I mean, there was a thing, I don't know if you guys remember, was supposed to be done at the beginning of the year, but then they postponed it. I don't know if they're gonna do anymore, which was the bone structure to remove like some zeros, so that everything it was like everything is in bones, but then like one agent T, like the value in dollars, they're gonna divide by 10,000 by 1,000, right? So
Yeah, the
then one thing that was like
redenomination, right?
yeah, $10 are gonna be like, I don't know, like 1 cent or 10 cents, so depending on what it was.
Yep.
So you technically would mine more agent T, but NJT costs are different based on that. I think that got canceled or it got postponed. You guys know? I don't remember now what was the
Postponed,
decision.
because they realised that changing it on exchanges meant there was a very brief window where you could exchange for the old price, your 1000x HNT for the old price. That would have destroyed the network. So it was way more complicated than they thought it was going to be, basically.
Right, and I keep hearing
And
people
also,
say in the chat and elsewhere that it's going to happen in August, but I'm not sure if that is still the case or not.
yeah, they keep postponing. I don't think August. If August would happen, we would know it by now, because August like 2 weeks from now, right? Or even that. Also, they have more
Yeah,
important things to work on.
Yeah. That is an excellent point, because very early in the chat we had a bunch of people asking about when 5G is going to happen in Europe, and the answer, of course, there is when Europe figures out the frequency piece. But 5G is certainly happening in the U.S. and it's happening across a bunch of different chains. Helium is not the only one, so it's really exciting to see the whole thing develop. And as we get into 5G, and I know for you three guys, it's not as kind of in your face, but here in San Diego, I just put up a couple 5G units, and just seeing how different the CBRS is, the 3.55 to 3.7 gigahertz is from LoRa, is amazing. It's just, you don't have anywhere near the coverage. It's really different as far as where you have to position it and what you get, and how long it lasts, and then how you map it. There's all kinds of new kind of pieces coming down the pipe. Another system to learn.
Yeah, totally different.
And
it's like you walk 10 meters.
What's that?
Okay. I mean, like when you're trying to map or like trying to walk with the coverage, you walk like, I don't know, 2 yards from the place, and then the signal is gone, basically, right?
Yeah. So only map. Actually, I think Helium has a mapper right now that's still whatever in top secret mode. Everyone knows that it exists, but as far as I know, I don't have one in my hands. But Pollen has a mapper. I've been mapping with Pollen, and I know that I can go, I think it's a block and a half, maybe 2 blocks away from, so the antenna I've got for Pollen faces basically due south. I can go 2.5 blocks west and I'll lose signal. And so it's got this kind of 180 pattern to the antenna. 2.5 blocks west, I lose signal, and like a block and a half east, I lose signal. 2 blocks to the north, I lose signal. Like it's and a block is what is it, 150 meters, maybe 200 meters? Like it's a really small area of coverage that we're seeing right now. So one of the interesting things I think is going to be making this transition to understanding a new frequency.
Yeah, I tried doing like this pollen thing.
Yep.
I was working in New York when I was there after Consensus, and me and Max, we actually found places that had the antennas, but it was the flowers, whatever it's called.
Yep.
But it was really hard to nail a place that we could get covered. We managed to get a few times, but it wasn't as easy.
Yeah,
so
and we're seeing. I mean, I'm seeing
weird.
Certainly there's already gaming and cheating happen on the Pollen network, right? Is that where Pollen has learned a ton from Helium in a really positive sense, is the gamers have also learned a ton about Helium and gaming and cheating. And there's a unit here in San Diego that, there's like a cluster of, quote, flowers, which are the radios, and they're supposed to be providing coverage, but you go there to map them and they're not. And so that, all of these networks that are interacting in between this blockchain and meatspace arena are going to have the same problems with gamers coming on and figuring out ways to extract value out of the system without providing anything.
Yeah, it's part of the growth. I think in a way it's good, right? Like it's bad PR, but it's PR kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean for all that, the Pollen stuff right now, that the thing that I'm hearing is that it just works, and I haven't noticed anything with Helium not working. Like the 5G stuff will show up just like anything else. You know, it's the same frequency, the same technology. It's just different names, and they're doing it slightly different ways. But yeah, interesting just to learn a new thing.
Yeah, I think roaming, it's the key change there. Like, I don't know how Helium's going to go. There's a lot of talks about these things. I do feel that having like Pollen, one network that is fully only Pollen hardware, it's going to be pretty rough to actually be usable. Hope it becomes actually something exciting and people, because like every time I go to the US, I need to go to T-Mobile store, get a SIM card, you know. It would be awesome to just get a eSIM, pay whatever I'm using, and done. So I'm hoping for the best, but not too hopeful. I think like Helium, if managed to get some roaming partners, that's more like a usable way. But we're still early. I think there's still a lot to be developed in there, and hope for the best.
One point I'm a bit surprised. 5G is really cool. It's technically speaking, it's really cool. But in fact, I think like Wi-Fi could be more easy to manage, could be international, and could be as cool as 5G. Because on your smartphone, you are doing everything through network. You are texting through network. You are making most of your calls through Wi-Fi network and so on. So, okay, there is some service you don't have, but you can have a really low-cost telecom service on your smartphone and global Wi-Fi coverage for your data, and that's quite interesting. And Wi-Fi could be international, better coverage, and so on. I'm quite surprised that there's no DAO for Wi-Fi that is in the plan right now, because in my point of view, the scalability of this and the use of this could be really larger.
Yeah, although that's
I'm 100% with Paul on this.
Yeah, it's not to say it's not there. I think it wouldn't be. So I know of Helium and Polymer doing the 5G stuff. I've heard of one other network that I'm currently sworn to secrecy not to fucking talk about, which is also doing 5G crap. But there has got to be either inside Helium or in some other space. And 𝗱𝗶𝘶 was talking about do this, although I now hear that those guys are whatever, a scammer rug. I've got people who haven't had their stuff shipped yet, and they keep yelling at me to take my YouTube video down on 𝗱𝗶𝘶. But that was what they were doing, was this worldwide Wi-Fi network. And to Paul's point, that makes way more sense to me, is that Wi-Fi is the same. Is it the same frequency everywhere? Is it all everywhere is 2.45?
Yeah. It's Wi-Fi 6E.
Okay, because it's the same.
Even all version of Wi-Fi, you can go on 2.4, which is quite interesting frequency. And if you take your Wi-Fi and put an antenna on a rooftop, the coverage will be totally different than what you have in home. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, and because it's, if you put Wi-Fi on the rooftop and it's both, so will it be both the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz? So
you can have both.
Yeah. And I'm seeing Maxime in the chat. Your homie Daniel is on here. He's saying there's a Wi-Fi DAO hip, so it's coming. Interesting. So I wonder it's going to have a little better range than the 3.5 that we currently have on CBRS, at least down on the 2.4. Am I understanding?
Yeah, I do think by the end of the year as well. Yeah, I think for as far as I understood, it's very similar to what we have at home with the 2.4 or 5 Wi-Fi. There's also the 5 gigahertz, the 6 gigahertz, but I think it's not licensed everywhere. If I remember correctly, by talking randomly with some random miners, by the end of the year, I think it's going to be some announcement for the Wi-Fi stuff.
Yeah, so I'm seeing Max from People Antennas coming on, and he's been reading all the hips on the HIP 51, 52, 53, and says there's Wi-Fi offload is part of the 5G sub-DAO. So
Wi-Fi offload is, but then there's Wi-Fi as well.
Specific
Wi-Fi offload is like your phone. If you go to an airport, that's not run by the carrier; it's carrier neutral. That's Wi-Fi offload. Okay, that kind of thing.
And then
Wi-Fi 6
Robert
offload.
Put is saying nobody will use his public Wi-Fi anymore. Certainly my wife does, despite me telling her not to. But I think a lot of normal people do. And I think what you're saying, Paul, is that there would be, let's say, like a Helium Wi-Fi network that would be global, or some Wi-Fi network that would be global.
what I mean is it's global and it can start and really it can start right now and it can go really fast because the hardware which is involved in Wi-Fi is really simple. I mean, 5G is really cool, but 5G even in with telecom operator, they are just starting to deploy it. So the technology maturity, particularly on private network, on small cells, and on the frequency domain and so on, it's not yet mature. So it's really good to start 5G, but I think that 5G will be usable for anyone with Helium in 5 or 6 year time to align the frequency to have a good software working, hardware that is scalable and so on, because the CBRS is not really scalable.
Right.
So there is a long time for this. But if we do Wi-Fi, we can get a really short result. I mean, we can have 1 million of Wi-Fi getaway in a year worldwide, and anyone can use it. So it means
Yeah.
that Helium becomes something that anyone can use, because when you are in the street, you see this Wi-Fi network which named Helium, and when you join it, you get I don't know, a portal saying, okay, you can reach network, you have to buy some DCs, and for $2 you can communicate for a month, and blah blah blah. And so it's really attractive for people.
Yeah.
More than 5G, which is okay, I need to set up my cellular Helium
Totally.
operator on my cell phone, switch manually, and so on. You know what I mean?
I mean, and if it's cheap enough, there is no point of using like a public Wi-Fi for the risk you're taking. You know, I might as well pay for the data that I'm using than getting some random private Wi-Fi, like in a coffee shop.
Right. And I remember, I don't know where I got it from, but I thought it was from Helium, is they talked about the future of a VPN DAO or CDN or the rest of it. And so they start putting that together, the Wi-Fi, and it makes it, from my non-technical standpoint, probably safer to get on the Helium Wi-Fi in Portugal than it does to get on the Wi-Fi of a coffee shop. That's my guess. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
reasonable.
I mean,
Yeah.
at any point you can have a VPN. I mean, it's less user friendly, but you pass through a VPN. What I mean, it's what I do in a hotel. I never connect to the public Wi-Fi of the hotel. I connect to it to connect to a VPN and pass all my traffic to my VPN,
Yep.
and it's basically safe.
Yep. Same
Then
here. I'm trying to think. Is there it's a little off topic for Helium, but I'm curious, since you just came back from traveling, Paul, is there a VPN service that you're using or recommending?
Yeah, my own VPN at home. So
Of
basically,
course.
I'm connected
Fucking geeks.
to my VPN.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been using
I don't
ExpressVPN
like.
because it's super easy, but maybe it's not as safe as running my own.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't really like the VPN business because, yeah, you don't know who is accessing your data at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
Yeah, totally. No,
I mean, this has all happened with Tor before, and the point is those exit nodes get taken down because of the kind of content that gets pushed through them. So decentralized VPN is always that kind of, do you really want to bring that kind of node into your house and, have a
yeah,
VPN provider that could suddenly mean that your internet is sending all kinds of stuff to people?
yeah,
It's
kitty
just,
porn or slavery stuff or whatever. Yeah,
mm,
totally. Nobody wants that
yeah.
in their house.
I mean, that's the problem running like an exit node on like any kind of VPN. I run they're like deeper networks, or they had like a VPN stuff, right?
Yep.
I used to run a Tor node in my house for a while because I have gigabit internet at home, but I would never run an exit node because of this issue.
Yeah.
Then the cops are breaking my door for some random reason, right?
Yeah.
That's like the problem with exit nodes. Yeah.
Yeah. We got enough of that already.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that, I mean, it means that for such network, but 5G gonna be the same. Basically, it means that the whole traffic need to be routed to some exit points. So we may have in this kind of solution kind of validators that are a central node of communication with a high bandwidth, able to have a single point of output which is not your home, basically, or you are at risk.
Dig it.
Yeah.
Let's go back, because I know a couple folks are coming on now that missed some of the early stuff, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly. To the continual changeover to light hotspots, is how soon do you guys think every manufacturer will have a dashboard, including rack, kind of up and running and super smooth, and like that is no longer an issue? Is that 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years? What do you guys think in there for dashboards for every hotspot?
Well, maybe if I can quickly we put together, me and Max, over the weekend, something called a Maker Partnership Program,
Okay.
that we are actually helping all the makers to integrate the new APIs that we can display the information on Hotspotty. We're also going to build each maker that wants to partner with us a like private dashboard for them and for their customers that can use through Hotspot. So we're trying to make a lot of like smaller, especially smaller makers that don't have a lot of sometimes software knowledge and money to be able to build a better network and a better ecosystem.
Yep.
So that's something that we're going to write a blog post, I think, today or tomorrow.
Okay.
And then we're going to announce that. So we don't necessarily need all the makers. We don't go through the trouble and have like 30 different websites to check each maker.
Yep.
But yeah, so that was my plug, right?
Super.
But
And is that
with that,
going to be on hotspotty.net, or is that going to be another website, or like where should people stay up to date on that?
so initially what we're going to do is that when you go to hotspotty.net, which is like a free tool, you can click on any hotspot, and that's going to pull live data from the hotspot. So we have like a partnership with a couple makers already that have a private API. So the issue with the light hotspots, for people who don't know, is that you don't have if they're online, offline, if they're transmitting data. There's a lot of things that you can't really see anymore because this data is not anymore on the blockchain. So it's very important for the makers to have some kind of direct connection with the hotspot. But these makers are going to take a long time to actually build like a dashboard that can pull all this data. So what we're trying to do is actually help them. We're developing like a Docker container for those makers that use 𝗲𝗀, for example. They can just like a plug and play, add another container to their Raspberry Pi or the system they're running, and immediately they have an API that's pulling the information and send that to Hotspotty, that anyone can go and then see live information. So we're trying to find ways to actually make it very easy for makers to have live data, and then we don't need to wait for 2-3 months or like half a year for that information to be live. Especially like smaller makers that don't have the money to be able to compete a little bit with the bigger ones, because a lot of them, they have really good build quality, but they just don't have the volume yet or the money in the bank that bigger deployers have, bigger manufacturers have. So trying to level the game there a little bit.
Yeah. Love it. I mean, it brings up this, we got a couple minutes left to talk about this, but what opportunities do you guys see that you just don't have time to work on, but that need to be fixed in the Helium network in general, right? Like there's this dashboard like Neil, I'll let you start, Neil. You got that right away.
I don't know. I was just trying to think then. I was like, oh, damn. There's so many, though. Like, there's just not enough people anywhere. I don't know if anyone else has a thought what I think about it.
I see a coming issue just related to what we discussed. And I mean that currently the manufacturer are building solution based on as you say 𝗲𝗀, Hotspotty, and so on, and they have. I mean, this company have to sell this service. Don't feel, I mean, I think that's you want to be paid at the end of the month, so you are selling this service to the manufacturer, and this service, they are services, so they are built on monthly basis or yearly basis. And the main question I have is, I mean, the manufacturer have sold hardware a year ago. They paid a lot of people to maintain this hardware. They have paid for building new applications. They paid for the services and so on. And they will have to maintain this. If they continue to sell new light hotspot and so on, and so we have 1 million this year and 2 million next year, it's going to be okay. But when they will stop to sell this hardware, how they will support all these running costs, and what's going to happen? So there is a question in my point of view around when a manufacturer will discontinue to support the hotspot. How can we migrate this hotspot to a more open solution where we do the management ourselves, or another company, constructor will be able to take the fleet in charge and so on. So in my point of view, we're going to face some problem around this. I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but 𝗏𝗵𝘁, I think, has stopped maintaining its hotspots, and more are going to come. And so that's something to do on this, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we tried. Yeah. I mean, exactly. I think 𝗏𝗵𝘁, for example, if they're gonna discontinue, they just should open source all their stuff in a way that people could maintain themselves. Even though most people, I guess, don't have the knowledge to do that, they would probably share it off and then get a new different hardware. Yeah, I mean, like what we're trying to do with Hotspot, we don't charge per hotspot. Let's say with a partnership with a maker, when they have a fixed amount that we negotiate and find it's good for both sides, because we also have like our running costs, right, for development, but also we don't try to extort anyone and try to make. We really want to help the makers, help smaller makers. We have the Hotspot Connect app that we're doing onboarding for the hotspots for all the makers, and if they have to build their own app, it's very costly. If they don't have the skills, they have to hire like some other company to do that. I agree with you. Like, for example, if you have a maker, if you have a hotspot that you're doing on Balena, you're paying per device per month.
Yeah.
So the more you have, so if at one point you have 500,000 devices, that's going to be a big bill every month. And that's something that we're trying to not get to that point. We're not charging like makers per device. So we're trying to find ways that we can help fund our company, but also help the network grow and become sustainable, become like a better product overall. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm down. I love open sourcing stuff as much as I can, and at least helping, right? Whatever we can.
That's why I was always a big fan of Hip22, because we go to that decentralized open source world. You know, we could just buy the cards, we could run our own firmware, we could have this great community firmware. Happens all the time, you know, in a lot of industries, but we just don't have that yet. We have the Ansible playbooks, but they're not a full system, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it is very sad. Companies that come, I think a lot of companies are probably not gonna survive during this bear market. So like, it's important to be very resilient and very lean, let's say.
Yeah, totally agree. And one project I would do if I had time. So if I stop sleeping at night, and it's related to a comment I've seen on the public comments. It's someone saying, "Are you also becoming mad about mapping?" And I've done. The guy say, "I've done 165 miles this weekend to do mapping." And yeah, I'm quite sure there is a game to do with this that will be really interesting for the mapping. But I mean, you know, at the early beginning of the millenary, we had some games online where you were getting some. I mean, you were doing some stuff and you get gifts, and people were ready to pay some couple of bucks to play and to have it's kind of lottery basically. So imagine we do that with the mapping. You can on certain eggs that are undiscovered or even some that are discovered and need to be refreshed, you hide some gift, and so people can get experiences,
100%.
get I don't know, NFT or just a physical gift. That could be something fun. There's not a big work to do that, but I mean, there is a work to do that. But I think it could be really because it's addictive. Yeah, that's the word the guy said on the chat. It's addictive.
Yeah, it's super fun to go around and like see your little thing ping and like, dude, I mapped another hex. Yeah.
Well, I've always thought that it'd be a really good opportunity for someone to build a game that's kind of like capture the flag, but you're capturing hexes, and then you put your own like NFT on that hex. So when you view it on the map, your NFT's there, and then you can start claiming areas and get your NFT everywhere. Like, it doesn't have to have a monetary value to do it. It's just make it fun and make people be able to like go out there and use it. You know, just you enter a hex. If you spent the most time in that hex, your NFT shows in that hex. So when you view it on a map,
capture the flag. Love it.
Yeah, but it's just something that I would never have time to do.
Yeah,
with my
that's Pokemon Go.
Yeah, with my daughter in a startup weekend, we had imagined games with 𝗲𝗏, which has a kind of Pokemon Go, capture the flag, and so on. So you had to discover some point, and with the RFD cards, you tip the device, and so you get the area around this device, and then you can imagine a lot of things with two teams and trying to get control of the territory by finding and touching the different. But what I mean is you can do exactly the same thing with the eggs. You can imagine in a city, two teams, I don't know, the red and blue, and you have to get the territory with rules that can be different.
Oh
Like
yeah, that'd
you
be
have to be the
super
first in
cool.
the head in the morning. And you can have fun things like this.
Totally. That's a super fun project for folks to work on. Interesting. I like the.
Just one more
Yep.
thing. I think 𝗪𝗏 is actually producing a game for Helium 5G. So
Okay.
there
Yeah.
is a game coming for 5G called Helium Go, but there isn't one for LoRa. So
Yeah, Helium Go is coming, and that's Roman has a ton of 5G hotspots, if I remember right. He's got like I don't know 50% of all the ones that were produced, something like that. So he's going to go into that super hard. Paul, you got a shout out from who was it? I just saw it back there. Falcon Punch said he moved all of his stuff to your console and everything just works, which is cool.
Good.
Yeah, that's how it's
good.
supposed to go, right? Cool. And I'm seeing
That's
Ed
awesome.
Blue dropping in here, which is cool. Mapping clusters that aren't there. I mean, I think if we can gamify anti-gaming stuff, that is both healthy and fun, right?
I
You
love
can,
it.
like mapping where coverage isn't, and then somehow smashing those hotspots out of existence. I'm sure that is not very easy to do, but that would be pretty cool.
That's cool. I love it.
Yeah.
I love the name, especially mapping gaming and the anti-gaming people.
Gaming anti-gaming.
Anti-gaming, the gaming people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like Ingress. You know, like goes by Google. The Ingress is like the green and the blue team or something like that. They go to the spots and I think there's so much things to do. There's just so little time. Like Paul said, you should just stop sleeping. They're like Travis, take like naps every day a little bit.
Or recruit more people. And I think maybe we'll kind of round this thing out with Neil's teaser that a lot of big players are looking at this, is that when those big players come on, they're going to bring with them engineers and people who maybe not as part of the official integration or use of Helium, but just being exposed to it from their company where they don't know about it now. And that was one thing that, Daniel, I think you had said last week, was that walking around the LoRaWAN Expo, so many people were like, what's Helium again? You know, and from our perspective, we're like, well, it's the biggest LoRaWAN network you've ever seen. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
But
it is really like that though. It's all about the education at this point. Like I've changed so many people's minds about Helium because I've given them a sensor. You know, we gave one person a sensor and they drove from the top of England, Bradford, right down to Cornwall, didn't lose coverage, used it for the whole week and came back and still had battery charge. Now that changed their mind and they realized suddenly, wow, this thing's real, you know. And it's about producing those utilities like TrackPack or, you know, AirPack that we might be coming up with next, and a few sensors like that, and getting them in the hands of people.
AirPack, huh?
Yeah, well,
a little product drop here on the state of the network.
but that's the idea, you know. I'll carry on spewing out apps to really get the education across. I don't think there's much business in that. I think the business comes from the API systems to the back end, and these big companies being able to use those APIs. But they're never going to learn about those APIs until their friend goes, "Oh, have you seen this thing?" You know, and the education piece there of actually getting these sensors into people's hands. That's the big thing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we're a couple minutes over time, but Paul, I mean, again, I go back to like you've been in this a long time. You found Helium pretty early and kind of saw it and was like, oh, this looks cool. It's already something I know about. It's got this cryptocurrency thing. What's your sense of how many other folks like you don't know about Helium?
I'm not sure to
Sure, I'll ask it a different way. So you've got a lot of experience in LoRaWAN. How much of the LoRaWAN industry do you think doesn't know about Helium? I mean, we got it from Daniel walking around at the LoRaWAN Expo that kind of anecdotally a lot of folks don't know about it. But when you talk to other people in LoRaWAN, are you consistently finding that they are also asking, like, what is Helium? What are they asking you about? Yeah, what it is?
It's hard to answer this. I think now most of the LoRaWAN community had heard about Helium. Did they understand what is Helium is another question, because most of the community is private network, and so they don't want to be public. For one reason is that they are invoicing the private network to their customer, and it's a big part of their incomes. So if they go public, they lose a part of what they do. And what is important is to let them understand that Helium is also private. It can be private. Manage your own console, your own router, and you private. So you can continue to create your revenue on providing a private network to your customer, but in the same time, you can do this by reducing your running costs by using what the community provides.
Yeah.
And so instead of putting, if you want to cover a city, instead of putting 5 antenna with a redundancy of 2 or 3, you can just put 1 or 2 antenna using the Helium community redundancy to cover the rest of the city. So you provide the same quality of network with a lower price, and in terms of the competition, you can be better, higher margin and lower cost. And so that's really what the community mostly do not yet understand.
Right.
Because they see it as the C network, basically. It's something public, it's crypto, it's complex, blah, blah, blah. But they don't understand they can use it as a service, in fact, which is less expensive than the network servers they are paying to the standard provider, and more efficient. And
Dang.
and as they are, I mean, I don't know what is the phases. Unfortunately, I was not at the LoRa Expo. I was in holidays, so it's for the best. But I would be really interesting to be there to understand how the LoRa One community now understands this, because I mean, it's always a question of maturity. Just Helium is 1 year, basically. And so the time to spread this information, this knowledge through the existing ecosystem, it's more than 3 years. So we can say that maybe 30% of the community understand what is really Helium and what can they do with it, and 66% not yet. It's don't know if it's the right number, but
no, it's a reasonable guess. It's one more kind of cloudy data point, which is all we get on Helium, and that's cool. Daniel, what do you got?
Yeah, I know. Just like I don't have the thing open so I can write. Like everybody's talking about the mystery box, and I think it's such a good idea. Maybe Nick could combine into the crew build thing. It's like a monthly plan to people to get like some sensors, and everybody build together once a month.
Yeah, I mean that build, aside from the AV disaster, was super cool. Just to see people working together to do that. But I love the mystery box idea. I'll take a look at that, and maybe there's like a US version and a Euro version. We figure out how we all work together.
Work together, yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. Okay,
we could build dashboards for it really quickly as well. So every sensor you get has a dashboard.
I love it.
Work out the box. How fun would that be? I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah,
no, I'll work on. I'll see. I'll see what's going on. Let's see. We got some admin stuff to clean up at the end of the show. I know we're a couple minutes over. If you guys need a drop off. It looks like we are moving the time for State of the Network to Fridays, because that works better for Helium Foundation and Nova, so we can have more of those guys on and girls on as guests. So right now, the tentative time and date is Fridays at 0900 Pacific. That may enter into your drinking schedules, so we'll see if we can change that around. But I think that's what we're going to get is Friday mornings. And then Gristle Crew shout out. I always get questions about that. Like, it's different than this YouTube channel. It's a paid membership. You got to join. The price just went up. I told people forever to join it at $50 a month. Now it's $150 a month. And I think that is a super good idea, Daniel, to start including a monthly sensor in that. And Neil, maybe we can work together and do something cool with that piece. So just continue to add value. Everyone on here, so Paul and Daniel and Neil, all of their links to their various sites and offerings are in the description on this YouTube channel. So go down and visit their stuff, see what they're doing, whether it's Hotspotty or Disk 91, and you want to run a console that works all the time, like Falcon Punch found, or you track stuff the way Neil is doing it. All that stuff is awesome. Or you need education on the Gristle King side, that's all there. And this is super fun for all of us to do, but it's also really nice to get supported financially as well. So if you want to support this, sure, you can drop money on the YouTube thing, but you're way better off actually buying a service from one of us and supporting us that way. And that's how we all grow together.
Yes, please sign up to TrackPack. Please, we need as much help as we can get.
Yeah.
So
no, it's good. And I'm
going to do that right now. I didn't do that yet.
Cool. I've got 6 of them here in the U.S. So anyone in the U.S. who wants one, the first 6 who send a contact request in via the Gristle King site, I'll send them out to them and they can figure out how to onboard there. And I think that's probably a decent place to wrap up. Paul, anything to add as a closer? No, you good? Go to disk91.com.
Yeah.
Cool. Right on. Thanks, guys. I will see you maybe Friday or maybe next week.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Late.
Bye.
Bye.